Singers are going to stay up here. They're going to give me a kick if I go a little long, so should be fine. In your bulletin tonight, on the front page, instead of giving you some kind of a brief overview of whatever we might be doing this year or a little homily, I just included the actual Christmas story from the Common English Bible, which is a fairly new translation. And so I just want to read it with you, for you. You can follow along because there are some things that I want you to see. And my guess is that probably nationwide, even though there are a lot of people who know the story, have heard the story, you wonder how many people have actually read it themselves. And so you get to do that tonight. So here we go. This comes from Luke chapter 2. In those days, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire should be enrolled in the tax lists. The first enrollment occurred when Quirinius governed Syria. Everyone went to their own cities to be enrolled. Since Joseph belonged to David's house and family line, he went up from the city of Nazareth in Galilee to David's city, called Bethlehem in Judea. He went to be enrolled together with Mary, who was promised to him in marriage and who was pregnant. While they were there, the time came for Mary to have her baby. She gave birth to her firstborn child, a son, wrapped him snugly, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the guest room. Nearby, shepherds were living in the fields, guarding their sheep at night. The Lord's angel stood before them. The Lord's glory shone around them, and they were terrified. The angel said, "Don't be afraid. Look, I bring you good news to you, wonderful, joyous news for all people. Your Savior is born today in David's city. He is Christ the Lord. This is the sign for you. You will find a newborn baby wrapped snugly and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a great assembly of the heavenly forces was with the angel, praising God. They said, "Glory to God in heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors." When the angels returned to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's go right now to Bethlehem and see what's happened. Let's confirm what the Lord has revealed to us." They went quickly and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in the manger. When they saw this, they reported what they had been told about this child. Everyone who heard it was amazed at what the shepherds told them. Mary committed these things to memory and considered them carefully. The shepherds returned home, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen. Everything happened just as they had been told. This story is so familiar to us that we lose some of its great punch. This story is a turning over the tables kind of story. This story is sort of like American lore, rags to riches, sort of. We'll get to that in a minute. But mostly this story is about people who shouldn't have been included in such a big deal. God is trying to do a new thing, a very big thing, and the people that he chooses are so nobodies that they're really just everybody's. Like you and me. No offense. Mary was a teenage girl who wasn't yet married to Joseph when she gets this invitation from Joseph, or from God, to carry this child Jesus. And by the way, just want to take a note right now and give you permission to question with your scientific mind the veracity of this story. Can I believe this story? Can we go any further if there are parts of this story that I just categorically cannot agree with in good conscience? You're free to do that. In fact, I encourage you to do that and look to something bigger so you don't literally throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is another reality here at play with every writer in every book of the Bible, and that is they're much more interested in theology than history most of the time. And so while you may have trouble with some of the details of the story, don't let that stop you from catching the real news that Luke is wanting to. The first big news that we get is the one who's going to bear this child is a nobody/everybody. And very ordinary person, a very young ordinary person of no reputation, with no kind of name for herself, not coming from any significant family, from no wealth whatsoever, no letters after her name, bad job, nothing as ordinary as you could possibly get. And the guy that she is betrothed to, engaged, same thing. He's Joseph. We make a big deal about his family line, but by that time, half the world was related to David. You know what I mean? So it's not that big of a deal. He was as everybody ordinary as anybody you could ever think of. And then, of course, we have the place where the birth happened. This is almost insulting in the story for a modern reader. If text, I mean, how ridiculous is this? In an area of the world that is known for their hospitality, here comes very pregnant Mary, right? Maybe screaming in pain at this point or gasping because she can't help herself. And as she's walking through town, knocking on doors, nobody is making room for her. I mean, isn't this crazy? And the only thing left for her is a little cave barn behind some other house. And so that becomes the birth room? I mean, can you imagine what's going through Luke's mind as he's crafting this story for us to remember and pass down? He's wanting to give you a crazy tale of just how much God is reversing everything and bringing out this very good news. So Jesus was born on a filthy floor with sharing space with a bunch of farm animals. You and I are so used to hearing about Jesus laid in a manger in snuggly clothes, we just think, oh, that's so cute. Until we realize that not one of us in this room would ever make a manger, a feeding trough for farm animals, the place where our little baby, if we have one, is going to sleep at night. We would never do this. Again, don't allow the familiarity and the comfort of the story. Take your eyes off the radical shift that is happening in this story. This is a story for everybody's everywhere. And there's a reason for that. Well, the last group I want to talk about tonight are these shepherds. And what time of night is it? It's late at night, meaning they drew the short straw, meaning they were low on the totem pole, so to speak. They were stuck with this shift, and they're out there, and they're the ones who get the first clue that Jesus was born. Not the king just a handful of miles away in Jerusalem, but these smelly, sheep-smelling shepherds are the ones who get this great news. Again, a reversal. What is the theological point that Luke is wanting us to hear beyond just a crazy story from 2,000 years ago? He's saying that when God chose to show up, God chose to show up in the lives of people that nobody expected God to show up with. We would have expected royalty, at least wealthy, powerful people, but that's not who God leaned into in this story for a reason. Through this story, God is communicating that what God is doing for Jesus and Mary and Joseph and the shepherds, God does for everybody, all the ordinary everybody's on the planet. This is great news. This means that if you've ever felt like God didn't care about you or you're of no consequence and whatever self-esteem issues might be going on, just remember the Christmas story. Because in this moment, God says to everyday ordinary people who struggle with everyday ordinary things, I'm with you. I choose you. I made this massive part of this chapter of the story that we're weaving together about you. You matter. You matter. And if you hear nothing else tonight, hear that. Because you matter to God. And that story that we celebrate tonight evidences that. Well, you may have heard, but Jesus didn't stay in that cradle. He grew up. And you might wonder, what did he teach when he grew up and finally started his earthly ministry when he was 30 years old or so? He started to teach things like God is for the everybody's. God is for those who feel like they don't have a shot with God. God is for those who feel like they don't have a chance because of the things they did or what other people have said or who they were born to or what their nationality was or what their legality was, on and on and on. Jesus went to all those people, especially those people, particularly those who felt terribly outcast by others. And Jesus went to those people and said the same thing that Mary and Joseph concluded. You are loved by God. You are loved by God. You are loved by God. It's almost like Jesus, who had this incredibly close connection with God. It's almost like what that relationship did for him allowed him to say to other people those beautiful, wonderful, hopeful words. I wonder if there's a connection there. Interestingly, he grew up, and this whole past year we've been talking about his most famous sermon called the Sermon on the Mount. It's long, it's kind of his stump speech, but all the way through it, he's primarily talking to everybody's everywhere. Not the elite, not the powerful. He never sought them out. Sometimes they would seek him out, and when they'd question him, they'd be deeply disappointed with his answers because he wouldn't follow the cultural script. You know what I think the whole, or at least one of the major reasons why we need to remember this story is, and maybe the point of it in the first place, is one that we'd figure out right out of the gate that we're loved by God. That means we're loved, period. You who feel like you're not very loved, good news, you're loved. And that maybe that owning that love story, that we are truly loved by God, would actually change us from the inside out. It would be so powerful in our lives, it would transform the way we think about ourselves. And as we started to think about everybody's everywhere like us, we'd realize that everybody else is also equally loved by God, no less. That starts to create a whole new reality. I mean, doesn't that make sense? That's what's going on with Jesus. He can't stop talking about the love of God because the love of God has changed his life. We have a wall of witnesses over here. These are all famous people for being famous, for doing great things in the world, with all kinds of rights everywhere. If it's racial rights against multiple different skin tones, if it's LGBTQ rights, if it's climate change rights, if it's women's rights for voters, there's a whole lot of people represented over here. Not all these people are Christian, but I do want to tell you that they have all been moved. They have all been moved. Something changed their vision because they stopped thinking just about themselves and what was in it for them, and they laid it all on the line for other people or the very planet itself. And that does not come from nowhere. Isn't it wonderful that this love of God, this capacity for God to help us see each other and everyone in this world and the world itself with graceful, compassionate eyes, that some people get it from another channel? I think that's profound. Isn't it incredible what can happen when our lives are changed by love? I'll give you a couple local stories for that. Some of these you might know about and some you may not. We have a gal in our church. She's sitting in here tonight. Her name is Angie. And for the past couple of months or so, she has been carving out time on a weekday morning to put on her clerical garb. That's her official clergy outfit stuff, you know, with the robe and the stole, and go down to San Francisco and stand outside with other clergy members outside of the office where ICE is held. And they're there just to stand as witness, to say what we see happening here is inhumane. Why do they do that? Why do they risk it? I think it was the day before she went this past week that those clergy members all got arrested. I was kind of disappointed for Angie and kind of jealous of the clergy. Maybe she didn't get arrested. I'm not sure yet. But they got arrested because they were trying to do a thing that we saw back in the civil rights movement, to make a point just by being present. Why would they do that? Why would they risk it? It's because they have experienced a love that is so profound that it changes their vision for everybody else in the world. And when they see terrible things happening to other people, they cannot sit still. They must do something, say something, be something. That's the power of the Christmas story, that we are loved, and we get that so deeply that it changes what we do with our very lives. Now, seriously, I could go throughout this room and tell you more and more stories. I could tell you a simple story like Sue Camblin over here. who volunteers time in our office every week. That may not sound like a big thing, but it is, because we have 1,000 people flowing through our halls every single week. And knowing that we have a friendly face there, Trudy's another one, Catherine's another one who's here. Well, we have others here too. All these people are representing this love of God. What does that do to the people who flow through this space? Why do they do it? It's because they have experienced a profound love, and they care enough about this place to continue that message that they can. We have singers up here who put themselves on the line, hoping that you'll sing along, hoping that it goes well, hoping that we all start and end on the same time, and maybe on key in between. It takes guts to do that. Brian playing his stuff. Why do they do this stuff? They do it because they've experienced a love that is profound, that is transformative, a love that is communicated at Christmas, during the Christmas story. This story is about transformation. It's about turning things around, flipping things around in a way that communicates that God is for and with everyone, with the hope that as we, like Mary, considered all these things in our heart, we would find ourselves more and more seeing the world with lovely eyes and doing lovely things to help this world become a more lovely place.